On June 25, 1950, at 4 a.m., North Korean forces launched a surprise attack across the 38th parallel. Over 75,000 troops and 150 Soviet-made T-34 tanks advanced under artillery cover. Seoul, just 50 kilometers south of the border, had no strategic depth for defense. Within hours, panic spread as civilians awoke to the sound of distant explosions. The South Korean army, outgunned and unprepared, lost critical communication lines. This marked the beginning of the Korean War's most devastating chapter. The North Korean People's Army, NKPA, executed a Soviet-style blitzkrieg, spearheaded by the 105th Armored Brigade. They breached the weakly defended Onjin Peninsula and Kaesong-Munsan corridor simultaneously. South Korea's 7th Division collapsed within hours, with only 30% of troops retaining weapons. Declassified CIA documents later revealed Stalin had personally approved the invasion plan months earlier. By noon, NKPA tanks were already approaching Ujeongbu, Seoul's last natural defensive barrier. President Syngman Rhee convened an emergency meeting at 6 a.m. in the underground bunker of Gyeongmudae, now Blue House. Military reports indicated 70% of ROK forces were already non-operational. The cabinet debated whether to declare Seoul an open city to spare destruction, but ultimately ordered a desperate defense. Unknown to them, NKPA infiltrators had already cut most phone lines. This decision delay would cost critical evacuation time for 1.5 million civilians. As NKPA artillery began shelling Seoul on June 27th, 400,000 civilians flooded the Han River bridges. At 2:30 p.m., ROK engineers detonated the Hanggang Bridge prematurely, with 4,000 people still crossing. Over 800 died instantly, while thousands more were stranded on the northern bank. This tragic decision, meant to slow the NKPA advance, became a symbol of leadership failure. Those left behind faced immediate communist occupation and subsequent ideological purges. By June 28th, all radio and newspaper operations ceased as NKPA forces entered Seoul. The last KNBC broadcast urged citizens to remain calm before cutting to static. North Korean agents systematically destroyed telephone exchanges and seized printing presses. For 3 days, residents hid without news, hearing only distant gunfire and propaganda trucks announcing Seoul's liberation. This information vacuum allowed mass arrests of intellectuals and officials who failed to evacuate. Seoul National University students formed the first guerrilla units using hidden WW2-era weapons. Their Flying Tiger Squad conducted 17 attacks on NKPA supply lines in Seoul from June 29th to July 3rd. Operating from secret tunnels beneath Changyang Palace, they rescued 200-plus prisoners. However, 80% would be captured and executed after the Chinese intervention. These actions delayed NKPA reinforcements heading south, buying time for UN forces to establish the Pusan perimeter. ROK 5th Division remnants and police held Myeongdong for 53 hours, using sewer tunnels and department stores as strong points. NKPA tanks struggled in narrow alleys where defenders used doorbreaker tactics, ambushing from buildings, then vanishing. Civilian casualties mounted as both sides implemented scorched earth policies. The iconic Madopa department store became a fortress until July 3rd, when flamethrowers finally silenced its defenders. This urban warfare foreshadowed Stalingrad-like battles to come. Seoul's Severance Hospital, now Yonsei, treated 3,000 casualties in 72 hours without electricity or clean water. Doctors performed amputations by flashlight as penicillin stocks ran out. Most tragic were the 3-day orphans, children whose parents died during the Han River crossing. By July 1st, morgues overflowed, forcing mass graves in Namsan. The NKPA later confiscated medical supplies, leading to 5,000-plus preventable deaths. These scenes would later inspire the Geneva Convention updates on medical neutrality. On July 3rd, ROK Marines made their final stand at the historic Bosingak Pavilion. Using the 15th century bell as cover, they held for 9 hours against 2 NKPA battalions. The resistance allowed 15,000 civilians to escape through secret routes along Cheonggye-chen Stream. When ammunition ran out, the last 12 defenders detonated grenades rather than surrender. The pavilion's destruction marked the symbolic end of Seoul's freedom. The bell wouldn't ring again until 1953. At 4:17 p.m. on July 4, 1950, the North Korean flag was raised over Seoul City Hall. NKPA political officers immediately began registering citizens for ideological screening. Over 50,000 would be forcibly relocated north in the next month. The Seoul Police Bureau became an execution site, with 2,000 plus killed in its courtyard. This occupation lasted just 3 months before UN forces recaptured the city. But the psychological scars endured for generations. The fall revealed the peninsula's brutal division, a wound still unhealed today.